Welcome to Community Living Room at Home. I'm Julia and today I'm going to teach you some printmaking, and we're going to make some wrapping paper, a card, and we'll finish off with a little gift tag. I'm going to show you how to make a card with two colours to it, a little bit like this one here. And what we're going to use, you'll be surprised, is a simple disposable picnic plate. You're also going to need some card, some rollers. Now, I've got two printmaking rollers. You don't need printmaking rollers. You can actually use a cheap sponge roller, one that you can get from either a craft shop or a DIY shop. So that's nice and affordable. In addition to that, I recommend some glue. Here today, I'm going to use Copydex glue because it works quickly, but you can actually do it with PVA. It'll take a little bit longer to dry, that's all. And what you'll also need is some printing ink. Now, this is block printing ink made by Darla Rowney. But again, you don't need to fork out for fancy printing inks. You can actually use acrylic paint. Acrylic paint will work fine for this particular process, but what I would recommend is if you do buy acrylic paint, also do buy a little tube of retarder, so that slows down the drying time, which is an advantage whenever you're doing printmaking. Printmaking can be a messy business, so I recommend that you put something on over your clothes. I'm going to wear an apron. This is my apron. It's my special printmaking apron. What I'm also introducing you to is the spoon. The spoon is a key tool for printmaking at home. I'm sure that most of you have got a wooden spoon somewhere that you can use for printmaking. A couple of things that I haven't mentioned: cutting mat, pencil, ruler, scalpel, and optional decorative scissors. Okay, we're ready to go. You need to do with your polystyrene plate is to remove the edge. So I'm just going to do that for you. Then you have a nice flat piece of polystyrene. Because we're going to use card, which is about this size, and we'll fold like that, we need it to fit that shape. So I'm going to cut a square that will fit that shape. You can line it up and draw around it. The polystyrene plate is slightly smaller, that's fine. Just get the shape roughly. I'm now going to cut my polystyrene to size using a scalpel and a ruler. You can also do this with an ordinary pair of scissors. And if you feel safer with a pair of scissors, go for a pair of scissors. Okay, so I'm just cutting the edges off so that we've got a nice shape that will fit the card. There we are, that will do fine. If you're new to this, I recommend using a simple shape. Because this polystyrene is not particularly subtle, actually it's a good idea, whatever, to start with something simple. If you get really canny with it, you can get a little bit more sophisticated. But let's start simple, because simple can be very effective. I'm going to use a heart shape. You might want to use a star, a fish, or a very simple motif. Okay, now I'm drawing a heart in roughly the centre. I'm going to press down quite gently initially. It's quite difficult to control the line, but don't get too het up about it because you're going to get a simple form and that will be fine. It'll print rather nicely. Okay, so I've got a simple heart shape. I'm now going to cut that out.
So tell us what you do.
I'm cutting out the heart shape with a scalpel. You can also actually cut the heart shape out with a very sharp pencil. So if you see, press down very sharply, right to the bottom. So it's possible to do it without using any sharp tools. Okay, and then I just push it out. Yeah. Just a little bit. Next, I'm going to decorate the background. You can do this either with the scalpel or with a pencil. I'm going to show you how to do it with a pencil, first of all. I'm going to freestyle a bit. I'm going to make some wobbly lines like this. A fork is a very effective tool. You can get a nice wave-like pattern. You see? I'm going to use the fork to make a wave-like pattern by swirling it round and pressing down. And turning the fork and making wave-like curl. A nice way to finish this off is with some decorative scissors. I'm using them just to finish off. Okay. These decorative scissors come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and you can buy them these days from lots of different craft shops. Okay, we're ready to go. We're going to print now. I'm going to show you how to prepare the ink for rolling. First of all, put a large blob of ink at the top of your plate. I've got a glass plate here. You don't need a glass plate. You can also use just a baking tray. An ordinary baking tray will work fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take ink from the blob of ink at the top. I'm taking ink from the top here, rolling it down and creating a thin layer of ink. It's important to have a thin layer of ink rather than a thick layer of ink because it prints better. And I also want it to have a lovely velvety texture. I'm just going to try and hold that gently and I'm going to roll ink over it. I'll do 3 or 4 rolls. That's all ready to go. Now I'm going to ink the background. Okay, I think we can give that a go. This is the card. We're going to print on this side so that it folds correctly, like that. Okay, so I'll place that down. I'll put the background on first and line it up, carefully line it up just above, and then when you're happy with the position, place it down. Next, I'm going to add the heart. And I'll put the heart in the middle, where the hole is. Now, to print. On this occasion, I'm using a piece of tracing paper, but you can also use a piece of ordinary baking sheet, and even a piece of just copier paper will also work. The nice thing about using tracing paper is you can see through. That's the only advantage, really. This is how I hold the spoon. I put 3 fingers in the bowl of the spoon and I'm holding it at the back with my thumb and little finger. Okay? What I then do is I hold one corner of where I'm printing and I start in the opposite corner. I press down firmly and rub across. I'm rubbing across the polystyrene surface and I work that spoon all the way down so that I cover every point on the polystyrene surface. I will have to move my hand to another corner when I get to the bottom. Just make sure you press down firmly with your fingers where you're holding it so that you keep your stamp in one place. Now, I've done that for a couple of minutes. I'm going to have a look at the results. Let's peel away. Just be very, very careful because it can break, it's quite fragile. There we are. Now I'm going to show you an effective way of making lots of wrapping paper really quickly. The first step is to make some stamps. These stamps are going to be glued onto the surface of your cardboard roll. To make the stamp, you're going to need a number of things. First of all, you're going to need some craft foam, or sometimes known as funky foam. This foam is available in most craft shops, usually in the children's section. Okay, here's a piece of funky foam. Comes in lots of colours. I recommend a light colour so that pencil lines will show. What you need next is an image. A simple image is what I recommend, especially if it's the first time you've done it. You can either take a drawing of a simple shape or you can use a template. If you're using either a drawing or a template, it's best to trace the image. Hence, a piece of tracing paper. Here is a piece of clip art. I'm going to use a simple star because it's nice and easy and very effective. To make a stamp, choose a simple design. I've chosen a star. This star is taken from a piece of clip art. So I'm placing the tracing paper on top of the image that I'm going to use. So I'm drawing round the star. If you're good at drawing stars freehand, then you could do that yourself. Okay, so there is a star shape. Then I take the image that I've traced and transfer it onto the funky foam. I do this by putting the pencil side on top of the funky foam and going over the line with the pencil. This will transfer the image onto the funky foam. There we are. And you can do this again several times so that you have lots of stars. Prepare a about 12 to 15 stars. You may not need as many as that. We'll see. So, you have your shape. All you need to do now is cut it out. I'm doing that with a pair of scissors. You can also do that, if you prefer, with a scalpel. There we are, there's a star. And here is a few that I made earlier, ready to go. You can make wrapping paper using a cardboard tube, which I'm going to demonstrate in a moment, or you can use a rolling pin. The advantage of a rolling pin is it keeps your hands free and you've got a handle. And don't worry, you don't need to destroy your rolling pin. You can wrap a cardboard tube around the outside, so you're not actually sticking to the rolling pin, you're only sticking to the cardboard. First of all, we need to prepare the ink. You can do this on a tray, an ordinary baking tray, or a piece of glass. This is a glass cutting mat. There is a technique, you just need to spread it out. You need to spread your ink out so that you've got a reasonably thin layer of ink. So you spread your ink out and thin it out. I've spread a thin layer of ink across all the surface of the tray. Now I'm going to take the roller and turn it around, and collect up the ink. It's going to take a few turns. For the next step, I'm going to stamp the stars onto the paper. What I'm using as the paper is brown parcel paper, which I think is particularly effective, but you can use any paper you like, really, any paper that suits you. You could recycle something, you could even use newspaper, which is quite effective. So, I'm going to start here at the beginning of my roll, press down and turn. So you're turning it, hold your hands at each end and turn it round. You may find this easier with a rolling pin because the rolling pin gives you nice clean handles. When I get to the end, I'm going to go back, and if you press down firmly, if you're pressing down firmly, it should go back over those stars that you've missed. There we are. Here we have a lovely starry piece of paper. I'm going to add a little extra touch now. While the ink is still wet, I'm going to sprinkle some glitter on. To make it a little bit more special, I'm going to add some glitter while the ink is still wet. I'm sprinkling it rather generously over there, over the whole surface. If you notice, I have got a piece of card underneath. That is a good idea, because what you do is you lift it up, you give it a shape, and you collect your excess glitter, and then you can save that glitter for later. And look! Isn't that nice? Now we're going to make a gift tag. Here is an example of a gift tag I made earlier on today. It's quite a large one for a big present, but you can make them in all different sizes. And I'm going to show you how to make one using cheap materials that's really effective. To make your gift tag, you need a number of different materials that should be easily available. First of all, you need some card. Any card will do. Recycled card, particularly good. You may want to use the back of an old cereal packet or something that you use, and maybe an old cardboard divider that you were going to throw away. You also need a pencil, some scissors, a ruler, and optional, a set square. In addition, I'm going to use some string or twine, but you can also use ribbon if you prefer. You also need a hole punch. Any hole punch will do. You can get a hole punch that punches just one hole, but your ordinary 2-hole punch will also work. Just use one corner. The first step is to cut the card into a gift tag shape. I'm going to cut the card. You can make it any size you like, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 5 centimetres across and 10 centimetres down, which is a good size for a gift tag. I'm going to cut that with scissors. Next, I'm going to cut off these corners at one end. I'm going to use a set square, but you can do this with an ordinary ruler. Chop off the end. And then take a hole punch. Press down on the hole punch and you have the shape of your gift tag. You can add some string or twine or ribbon. I take a piece of twine which is about 40 centimetres long. Size is up to you. I'm going to fold that in half, and it's got a loop at the top. Can you see? It's got a loop at the top. I'm going to take that loop and I'm going to thread it through the hole like this. Then I take the other end, hold it tightly together and pull it through the loop like so. Okay. There's your basic gift tag without a stamp. Next, we're going to make a stamp. To create a stamp, you're going to need a number of things. What you're going to need is some foam. I have some here. It's called craft foam or funky foam. You also need either a piece of stiff card, like mount card, or a block of wood. You will also need some glue. I recommend, for this purpose, Copydex, but any strong glue will do perfectly well. Now, the next thing you're going to need is an image to create your stamp. You can take your image from one of your own drawings or from a picture, or maybe something that you've taken from a piece of clip art off the internet. I'm going to use one of my drawings. You'll need a piece of tracing paper. But don't worry if you haven't got tracing paper. Don't buy it specially. Baking sheet works really well, and I recommend baking sheet. I actually think it's better than cheap tracing paper. So, I'm now tracing my image. Be careful of the size of your image. Make sure that you measure your tag and keep the image small enough so it will fit inside your tag. Keep it simple. Simple works best with this kind of stamp. In fact, you don't have to do anything quite as complicated as this. You could just do a star or a heart, and that will be very effective. And I'm now going to transfer it onto the foam. So I'm turning it over and placing the pencil side down on top of my foam. Next, I take the pencil and gently, do it quite gently because the foam is very soft, I'm going to rub the pencil lines onto the foam. You don't have to press too heavy. You'll find that the lines transfer very well onto this foam. Now this foam comes in lots of colours and that's very enticing, but I recommend use a light colour because then you'll see the drawing. If you use black foam, you might struggle to see your image. Okay, and there he is. There's this little fish, ready to shape. Press down over the lines that you've drawn. Press very firmly. So I'm going over the lines with a pencil. What this does is it makes the line go deep into the foam. So I'm pressing down quite hard. I'm wriggling quite hard with the pencil just now. This creates lines that will print. So just do press down fairly hard. It's particularly important with the lines you've drawn on the inside. With the outside, it's not quite so important because you are going to cut it out. And you're going to cut that out either with a scalpel or with a pair of scissors. Okay, I'm going to cut this out with a scalpel. Be very careful to press very firmly and leave a slight outline around the line that you've made with the pencil. Okay, just a millimetre or so. As you can see, it pulls away now. You can also cut it with scissors. This craft foam is very easy to cut. And there we are. And now we have a fish that I've created with the craft foam. I'm going to glue it onto a wooden block, but you can also glue it onto a piece of strong card. What I'm going to use to glue it on is Copydex or other latex-based glue. I find this particularly effective for making stamps. But you can also use ordinary PVA, which will work. It will just take a little bit longer to dry. So I've applied some glue and I'm sticking my fish to the surface. I press it down gently and I now leave it for about 10 to 15 minutes. Next, I'm going to show you how to print your stamp onto the gift tag. I'm using a water-based printing ink, but you can also use acrylic paint. And you can mix that acrylic paint with a little bit of retarder just to slow down the drying time, which is really useful when you're printmaking. So now I'm going to apply the ink to the block. Here we have our little fish on a wooden block. You can also have your little fish on a piece of cardboard. Works very similar. Okay, so I'm rolling the ink in thin layers across the stamp. And then I'm going to take a gift tag. I'm going to line it up on top of the block so it's roughly centre. Then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to flip it over and I'm pressing down. Press down nice and firmly, give it a little wiggle. And then lift up. And here we have the gift tag with the string.